Jesse McClellan. I am the owner of ROI Safety Services, and welcome to our weekly free safety training. We are covering Lockout Tagout today. So, the reason I started this weekly training was to get out to business owners and managers who just want an understanding of OSHA compliance and what do they need to know and how can they implement these training programs within their own organization and at least give you guys a starting place. And this is not an exhaustive training module by any means. It really is just trying to get you guys in a position, say, hey, this applies to me, I need to take care of this. And that's my purpose for these free classes. I really want to get particularly the really important ones like this, lockout, tag out, where people are losing fingers, they're losing their lives, and it's unnecessary. And as a business owner or a manager or a leader of people within your organization, we need to be responsible for safety. We need to put safety programs in place with training and actionable items to protect our employees. This is the purpose. This is free. I'm just giving you guys information. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I want to share what I have learned over the years with everybody who wants to join our or hopefully join our weekly YouTube training and other activities that we provide at no cost. But I would recommend that you do further research on this. I'll just give you an overview of lockout tagout. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm going to cover enough to where it would, if it applies to you, which I'm sure it does, will at least give you a starting point and to do more research. Now, the curriculum I use or the PowerPoint that I'm using is from OSHA 10 or OSHA 30. Uh, it's a pretty thorough PowerPoint. I'm not going to cover every single slide, but I'm going to cover them at a pretty high level. But I want you to keep in mind if there's anything that triggers, oh man, that applies to us. We need to implement that, to take action on that and do some research and figure out, hey, what you have to do to get in compliance and to protect your people. The priority for us is to protect people. There is no need for people to go home, at injured or dead. It's just unacceptable, and that's something that can 100% be prevented. We just need to get the owners and managers of these businesses on the same page and be responsible for their safety. Uh, I think his name is Williams. I forget his first name. He's an NFL player. I don't know the details. I did some research on it. It was just alarming to me that he's an ex-football player. He was working on a construction site. A pipe hit his head. He shrugged it off, and I guess he went back to work or went home. I'm not really sure of the details, and he ended up dying a couple of days later. He obviously had a massive head injury. A pipe fell on his head at a construction site, pretty common, and he died a couple of days later. And the guy's in his 30s. He's a healthy male, and he died. I don't know why he didn't go to the doctor after he got hit in the head. I don't even know if he had a hard hat on. I mean, there's not any detail. I can't even find OSHA and OSHA inspection or a reference to OSHA in any of the articles I read from over the weekend. So there have been some changes, but tragic, 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 unnecessary. We don't know the details. But I tell you what, if a pipe falls from the sky, somebody made a mistake, right? Somebody didn't secure a load. So something happened. And it's tragic and unnecessary. We don't need people dying on the job. Now, this is our weekly free OSHA training topic. I have done this one before. I will continue to do the top 10 OSHA training topics. I'll do some stuff here and there. I do have, this will be fun. I have a workers' comp attorney. I'm going to meet with her today, and we're going to discuss a live. We're probably not going to do it live. We'll do it recorded, I'm sure. But We'll see. But it's going to be an interview with this attorney. She's a wonderful attorney based out of California, and I've spoken with her once so far, and I look forward to today's interview, or kind of our first round of communications, and uh, to get in the mind of a workers' comp attorney and see how they view, businesses and owners of businesses and managers. So that'll be exciting. So that's to come in the next couple of weeks. So our purpose today is to give small business an insight on how to manage safety within their business. How OSHA, what does OSHA do? What do they expect of you? How to comply? And again, it's limited. Provide guidance and really get you guys on the same page and keep you out of jail and your employees alive. We don't want anybody hurt. Can you go to jail for violating an OSHA standard? Absolutely. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. Now, lockout, tagout, this is the federal standard. It is a regulatory requirement that can be enforced. So this covers the scope of this training is it covers servicing and maintenance of machines. If you have a business that you're making a thing, a widget, you're going to have machines. Whether you have one machine or 500 machines, you must have an evaluation of all of your equipment for safety. Most equipment must either be locked out or unplugged to work on. So we're going to talk about that. All right, so this doesn't cover construction, agriculture, electric utilities, anything like that, oil and gas. You guys have your own standards. This is going to cover basically general industry, and it does cover some construction. It just depends on the scenario that you're in. One should lock and tag out equipment on a job site as needed. There are most of the time you can unplug stuff at a job site, but there may be things that you can lock out, tag out, and it could be equipment. It typically will be equipment. And it applies during servicing or maintenance of your equipment. Again, if you have, the safest machine in the world and you need to open up the machine guard and do some work inside, you got to have a lockout, tag out program. You got to lock it out and make sure that it doesn't inadvertently turn on. So many people, especially in the food industry, it's very common for people to lose digits in bottling companies and food industry and various beverage industries. It's so common. And I get a couple calls a year in that industry of someone losing a finger or getting their hair caught in one of the, a drill press was the most recent one. So things like that, it's alarming and it's terrifying to hear how these injuries happen, and they can all be prevented. So I want you guys to pay close attention to what the requirements are and how you can prevent these kinds of injuries. Nobody thinks it's going to happen to them until it does. And then when it does, completely unprepared, don't know what to do, don't know how to talk to the family of the injured person, don't even know how to communicate with the injured person. What do you do next? Hopefully they're not dead. What do you do if they die? Who do you call? I mean, those are things that I hope none of you ever experience. It also doesn't apply to anything you could basically unplug, and various gas, steam, and petroleum. So those are some things this doesn't apply to. The standard it requires employers to establish a program. You must have a written, documented program. This has to be on paper, whether it's digital or hard copy, I don't care, but you have to have a documented procedure. You need to have written procedures how to lock and tag out your equipment. You got to have training. So these are all things that must happen within your organization. And it's not very difficult to do. You just develop a simple lockout, tagout program. You make it site specific. You look at all your equipment. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but some basic definitions that you'll hear throughout this training is energized, which is anything that has power in it. Energized source, anything with the source of power. Lockout is just putting a device and isolating that energy so it doesn't turn on. And then a lockout device, which uses positive means such as a lock, which is primarily most of the types of locks that we're going to use. Very, very, very common in every business. I don't have any business that we work with that doesn't have a lockout tagout program. It's something that most all businesses have something to lock out at some, whether it be a panel or a circuit breaker or something like that. So servicing and maintenance is shutting your equipment down and doing whatever kind of preventive maintenance or breakdown maintenance, and then tagging out is placing a tag on the equipment. Okay, so general requirements of program, including an energy control procedure and employee training, is required. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a very simple program. It's so simple that you can download a template. I think OSHA may even have a template for you. But that's if you want to do it on your own. Most of the time you can do it on your own, but if you get into some complicated things, multiple lockouts, multiple tags, and you really do need a professional to come in. I just did a company down in Corona in the food industry, and they had over 30 pieces of equipment. With each piece of equipment had 3 to 4 different lockout, tagout scenarios, and it was very complicated, and it took several days to do it and to get it done right. But they got it done, and it does take time. Now you only really need to do that once for the equipment, and then evaluate it annually, and then do your training and update your training annually, and make sure all your systems are working. And new hires, transfers, those are all things you need to do training on. So tagout system shall be used only if the isolating device cannot be locked out. If the isolating device can be locked out, the lockout shall be used unless employer can demonstrate a lockout system provides full employee protection. There are cases that this happens. I have not seen one in a very long time. Most equipment is designed these days to be locked out. So when a machinery is replaced or undergoes major repair, it shall be designed to accept a locked device. This is the scenario that we see almost everywhere I go. I haven't seen a machine that can't be locked out. I can't even remember the last time I've seen one. So they can all be locked out. If not, if there's a unique situation, then pay close attention, and maybe you can, retrofit it to where it can be locked out. But most equipment should be locked out at this point. So if a tag device is used, and again, I don't want you guys using tags. You need to use both. So can you use a tag? Yeah, but it's not a good idea. So make sure you can use a lock in every situation. Now, you must develop a procedure for every single piece of equipment that needs to be locked out. If you can unplug it, you don't need a procedure for it, but is it a good idea? Some cases it is, but you have to really look at every scenario. Now, if you have, let's say, a CNC machine and you have 100 of them and they're exactly the same, which we have a client that has about that many, and we did a lockout tagout procedure, their primary procedure, and then we did an individual lockout tagout procedure for each CNC machine, and they were all the same lockout, shutdown, and startup procedures. The only thing that we did for each piece of machine is we evaluated each one to ensure that every one of them was identical, and then we took pictures verifying where to lock and tag it out and how to do so. And every piece of machine had to have their own procedure. It's not very complicated, but it does take time because there needs to be an evaluation, and you need to ensure that you're getting all sources of power. So it could be air, water, electricity, hydraulics. So you really need to pay attention to all the different sources of power. Many times we've gone into companies where they've only identified the electrical, and then we found air and maybe some other types of energy, such as air and then steam, maybe just water, something simple like that. So we really hydraulic. So we got to look at all of the different types of potential energy within that piece of machine. So creating that lockout tagout, taking pictures of where the locks need to be, and filling out the proper forms, doing the training. These are all things that need to occur during this process. Now, everything shall be written and documented. This is where I see a lot of companies fail. They have a lockout program. They they neglect to do the machine procedure. Uh, almost, I would say, almost 9 out of 10 clients we have neglect to do this part because they think by having just the written procedure, they're okay. That's not the case. So let's say you have just, 5 CNC machines and they are hardwired. You have to have a procedure for each one. Or if you have a drill press that's hardwired, or a lathe that's hardwired. Now, if the drill press is not hardwired and you can unplug it, then that's fine. You don't need to put it in the program. I would, but you don't need to do it. I think it's a good idea to do it. You can get one of those caps that go onto the plug-in to ensure that nobody plugs it in, because that could be a problem. Now, the written procedure should be intended use of the procedure, steps of shutting down, use of tags and locks, and testing. Every one of them should be very similar. All of your written procedure should be very similar. Now, locks and tags, change wedges, whatever you're going to use to lock out your equipment, it has to be used specifically for that. And the lockout device shall be singularly identified by the only device used for controlling energy, not used for other purposes, and shall be durable. Go to Granger, wherever you get your supplies for your work, or and make sure you get those kinds. They're durable. They'll meet all these requirements: color, size, shape, whatever you want to get. Just make sure it's designed for that. Whoever you're using for your supplies, I think Granger. You can even I think even Home Depot and Lowe's have a whole section for lockout tagout. You could even go there if you needed it right away. They should be substantial and identifiable. So don't use a piece of paper for a tag, or a clothespin, or a paper clip for a lock. I have seen them before. So the tag shall warn of hazardous conditions. Have it clearly written. Do not start. Do not open. Do not close. Do not energize. Do not operate. So make it really clear. And yes, it has to be crystal clear, guys. We don't want to put little signs on there, or assume something. And even if you're going to lock it out, I'm just going to be gone until break, and then I'll come back. Nobody will touch it. That is your responsibility. If that machine is not locked out properly, and you go to lunch, and then you get sidetracked. Your boss has you do something else, and next thing you know, it's the end of the day, and that equipment has been unlocked and exposed. So it's 100% a good idea. Is every time you work on equipment, make sure that you lock it out, okay? Because you just never know what's going to happen throughout your day. And then inspections should be done annually within your organization, and that's to verify that your procedures are working. And it's very simple. You make sure that all your locked out, tagged out paperwork is getting filled out. All your people have been trained, and all of your lockout, tagout equipment is in good condition. It's a very simple audit, but it must be done. And then the training, this is key. We must train our folks regularly. Now, I recommend lockout, tagout to be done at least annually. We want to make sure that we go over this annually. If you want to do it more frequent, that's fine. I do recommend you do it at a minimum of annually, and you document it. You document the training, make sure that each employee signs the sign-in sheet, and cover these requirements. A video will help supplement the training, but the training must be site specific. You need to talk about your equipment, your procedures. Videos are pretty good, but again, you can't substitute site specific training with a video. It doesn't work. It's not good enough. All right, so regular training, the procedures you need to cover. I would cover each one. There's another, these are just procedures how to shut down equipment. So they need to be site specific. So if you guys are using drill presses, mixing blades, uh, punch presses, you name it, whatever you got going on, ovens, whatever you have at your location, make sure you lock and tag out and you go over those site specific procedures. Now, I don't like shock and awe training. I'm not a big fan of showing how many people die every year of lockout tag out. It just doesn't work because it just seems so far away unless it's hit you at home where you're at. Until you really experience somebody losing a finger or experiencing an injury on the job, it seems so distant. But the reality of it is people are dying and losing digits all the time because of lockout tagout. So keep that in mind. There was a really serious injury several years ago. I'll never forget it because I was actually right down the street when it happened in Santa Fe Springs. The company who makes tuna products, I'm still not really clear on all the details, and I don't think it will ever come out what really happened. But an employee walked into an oven that is supposed to heat the tuna up and make sure that all the bacteria are eliminated. Well, an employee went in there, a veteran, he's been there a while, into one of those big walk-in ovens, and he never came out. I guess a coworker shut the door on him and turned the oven on. And there was a big settlement. Of course, they got fined. I don't think anybody went to jail. I think somebody should have went to jail. They had lockout tagout procedures. I don't know if their training was up to date. The plant manager and the safety. So they had a safety manager too, which I really don't understand that. Maybe it was just in title. I don't know. I don't know those details, but I do know somebody died. We had another fatality down in Gardena, another machine shop in aerospace. A guy was working on a machine, and I think it was a shredder, and he was in there and it got turned on and he didn't make it out. And that was another really sad one. That was all over the news. They both were on the news, on the local news. You could probably pull up the YouTube video on it, and they're both very sad, and they're both very, very preventable. So I encourage each of you who's watching this, evaluate your workplace conditions. Make sure that you're doing the right thing by protecting your employees and training them. If you need help, call me. I'm available. You can have my cell number at 714-520-1608. Call me. I will help you personally. I don't want anybody getting hurt on the job. That my purpose for starting this company is to put people first and to understand the value of our people, because everybody matters. We need to make sure that people get home safe. Otherwise, we don't have a business, right? So God bless each of you. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. And if you want to reach out to me, call me, email me, text me, get on my website, fill out a quote request if you want to work with us, get an idea of what we charge, and like us or whatever it is on YouTube. Follow us. I'm going to be here every week. I ain't going away. I'm going to continue training and hopefully get the message out. Talk to you guys later. Bye.